right, so it's another Tuesday evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Of course, this is debate time on Ubuntu channel. I am your host, Lance Sanibanda, taking you through this whole process as we get to discuss something very pertinent and something which is very dear to the hearts of many Zambians and those that would love to know more about different things and certain things. Of course, this evening we are looking at what do you know about Barotseland and the BA64. BA64 simply stands for Barotseland Agreement of 1964. To help me discuss this this evening, I have with me His Excellency Ambassador Christian Luzongo Kalaluka. He is my guest this particular evening. Ambassador, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, comrade, and thank you for this opportunity, and good evening, viewers.
All right, thank you so much for joining us and also for responding to our call to at least have a discussion on the matter that has hit Zambia by storm, where so many people are having different versions or their own understandings being centered or being pushed across. Shortly, we'll be joined by my co-host, that is Chaza, as well as also another discussant, that is Comrade Akufuna Muyunda, who will be joining us right here to get done with this topic. Now, Comrade Christian, let's get first to introduce you to our dear viewers. Let's get to have your portfolio. Who is Comrade Christian exactly?
Thank you so much, comrade. Christian Luzongo Kalaluka is a common name in Barotseland. I have been the Secretary General of the Luzongo Youth League for over 10 years before my deployment into diplomatic mission for Barotseland, and I've been the National Executive Secretary of the Barotseland National Youth and Sports Council. I have been the founding president of the Barotseland Football Federation, which is in the process of legalizing its existence. I have also been the continental president for Africa of the Confederation of Independent Football Associations, CONIFA, which is the second largest world governing body after FIFA. I am also the Secretary General of the International Conference of Emerging States in Africa, ICESA, which has many countries that are fighting for their independence. Mm-hmm. And yes, I know most of you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And currently, I'm serving as yeah.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes, currently I'm serving as the board member of the Freedom Alliance International (FI), as well as Barotseland's Special Envoy for International Relations and Economic Cooperation, and High Commissioner Designate to Southern Africa. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And to you, our dear viewers, please get to note that we are discussing the Barotseland issue. Of course, trying to ask you to say, what do you know about Barotseland, as well as the BA64, or simply put, Barotseland Agreement of 1964. And like you've heard from Ambassador Christian's portfolio, obviously you can tell that we are in for a great history, and of course getting to know and understand what Barotseland is, as well as where the agreement came from. Now, this been the topic going on for some time. I think since time into memorial, this has been the topic, the Barotseland Agreement and everything. Comrade Christian, kindly update us on what is prevailing at the moment, or why are we talking about this issue that seemed to have been resolved way before independence? Help us to demystify the mystery of the Barotseland and its agreement.
Okay, thank you so much. I will be switching on to video and audio to ensure that my network is strong. Yes, please. You've asked a very good question about what is currently obtaining in Barotseland. Post 2012 Barotseland National Council, in which the people of Barotseland unanimously agreed to let go of the 1964 agreement with Zambia, which was the only legal instrument that integrated Barotseland into Zambia, which had specific and express terms and conditions with regards to our relationship with the rest of Zambia. We decided to put in proper institutions to ensure that our liberty, our freedoms, and rights that we have been deprived of for then 58 years, are regained. So this is where we are. We have the government in Barotseland, and some people were arrested. Our head of government, His Excellency Right Honorable Afumba Momboto, was arrested together with his colleagues. And we know one died in prison. We know the First Lady of Barotseland was killed right at Mukobeko maximum prison when she went to visit her husband. And all these things are kept, from the public, view by the Zambian government and Zambian media. And so, in short, where we are right now, we're consummating our liberty. We are a state already, and according to international norms or international law, state exists the moment the conditions, or requirements of statehood are fulfilled with or without recognition. So, in short, right now, where we are lobbying the international community to support Barotseland's peaceful push for total, independence. Of course, we are consummating our liberty.
All right. Thank you so much for that. This time around, let me get to welcome Chaza, my co-host. Chaza, good evening and welcome to the program.
England, and I'm glad to be here. I was thrown out when the program was just about to start by, connectivity.
All right, it's good to have you, as well as let's take this time to also welcome Comrade Akufuna. Comrade Akufuna, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening and greetings to all our listeners, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So quickly, like we did with Comrade Christian, Comrade Akufuna, kindly give us your portfolio so that at least our followers and viewers can be able to know who we are having a chat with this evening.
Yeah, so Akufuna Muyunda is basically, a young man born and bred in Mongu, Western Province. A climate change youth philanthropy. I do a lot of work around people and environment. So issues to do with the nature and the welfare of the people, mankind, matter a lot to me. I'm a passionate, young leader, of course, who has benefited from the United States of America, the Young Africa Leadership Initiative Program. I've worked with a number of youth from various networks within and outside Zambia, trying to build capacity building in terms of responsible and authentic leadership in the space of, where young people can play a role to inform the future we so desire. So I think in a brief, that's all about me.
All right. Thank you so much for that, and we really appreciate. Now, I would like to engage you on this basis of obviously just giving a background of Barotseland so that the people can get to understand this thing or this topic that has been in their mouths and in their ears. They hear you go here, they talk about Barotseland. Wherever you go, there's an issue of Barotseland. Kindly give us a brief history about Barotseland. Comrade Akufuna.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So I think, first of all, I will not labor so much in terms of history, because the history of Barotseland is a very rich and broad-based history, which I don't think I can consume in the allocated amount of time. but I'll just highlight a few points and takeaways from where this issue of Barotseland comes from and how come we are here today talking about it. First of all, let me make clarity on certain myths. Number one is usually there are those expressions where we say Barotseland does not exist. So it's a non-existence international treaty. So those are false claims, number one. And most of the time when we engage in such conversation, we find a situation where people label anyone who participates in this conversation as someone who's committing treason, and it's something that should not be discussed at all. And I think all those are false interpretation of what this issue is all about. First of all, also I'd like to recognize the fact that today, at least we can even talk about the issue of Barotseland openly, and we can freely express ourselves like we are doing today on this channel. In the past, by now, I would have been arrested, Comrade Christian, Chaza, and yourself, Professor Lancy, would have been arrested by this time for just simply trying to share and learn more about what this issue of Barotseland is all about. And also the issue of Barotseland is not about the Lozi people. It's not a tribal issue. So when we discuss the issue of Barotseland, we're not talking about tribe. It's actually an international treaty. So we're talking about a national affairs issue. And that is why all of us would have interest, irrespective of where you come from in terms of Zambia. So again, I'm trying hard to really provide some kind of authentic leadership in this conversation. And by so means, I'm saying, when we discuss the issue of Barotseland, please let's do it with an open mind. Let's come here to learn from one another and share with one another. Our shared interest is to really see how today Zambia can benefit from our history in terms of Barotseland Agreement 1964. What was the intention of the Barotseland Agreement? The intention of the Barotseland Agreement 1964 was not to cause any wars or problems or conflicts, or was not to create any problems to anyone in the new country called Zambia that was created after the amalgamation of Northern Rhodesia and Barotseland. The intention of Barotseland Agreement was definitely to create a one and unitary state called Zambia, full of peace and recognition of the history where we come from. And the intention, if you can read the Barotseland Agreement itself, you will not see anywhere where it says secession. Okay, so the intention was well intended, and the only problem that we had was when it was abrogated without consent of the Barotseland people in 1969 in Matero. So first of all, there's so much significance that is attached to this document because what created us to be where we are today as Zambia. So for those that truly love Zambia, then they should be interested in the issues around the Barotseland Agreement. That's where we come from. That is our history. I don't think Kaunda was not wise when he went and approached the Barotseland king to try and see how we can create Zambia in union through the Barotseland Agreement. I also don't think that the king of Barotseland was not wise enough to really work hand in hand with Kaunda so that we can create this country called Zambia today. All our leaders had good intention for all of us, which is why all of us should have shared interest in seeing the value that which the Barotseland Agreement brought. So yeah, the birth of Barotseland Agreement brought us into the country called Zambia, and that's the history where we're coming from. We all know what happened is not what we desired. Even as young people today, as leaders today, we are not happy that this good agreement that was intended to make Zambia a better country for all parties involved, Northern Rhodesia and Barotseland, be all good, was abrogated, and it was criminalized, such that even the mere mention of the word Barotseland Agreement was banned. All literature about Barotseland Agreement was banned. Thanks to President Michael Sata the late, for the first time we saw the central government even publishing the document itself called the Barotseland Agreement. So I think we are making some kind of progress, though we come from a very hard history in terms of the people of Barotseland in this context, because a lot have lost their lives, a lot have been maimed and called different kinds of names and fought against and criminalized. And even up to now, we still have a number of them that still undergo such kind of treatment, which is not accepted. We shouldn't be acceptable, because everything about Barotseland is written down. And the good thing about the people of Barotseland then, and in terms of the history and the governance strategy and system that was implemented in Barotseland, was whatever happened in Barotseland was put on a paper. And if you want information, we need to just look for information. It's all over the place. So I think, in a nutshell, I would like to start that as an introduction to our conversation, and that we call for an open-minded, contribution to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. But just a follow-up before my comrade Chaza comes in. A follow-up, you keep on saying that Zambia abrogated the Barotseland Agreement in 1969. What kind of abrogation are we talking about here? Let's make our viewers understand, or let's bring people into sync. Comrade up front.
So when you enter into an agreement, the next step is the agreement must be respected, and the secondary step is the agreement must be implemented or actualized, for lack of better terms, which means that we agreed that you and me should live as one in terms of our marriage. You are my husband, I'm your wife. And because of this, your responsibilities are as follows, and your role in the new Zambia is as follows. But immediately after us having a successful, signing of the agreement, the other party changes their mind and says, we don't recognize Barotseland. You are now called Western Province. And there's no such a thing as a king of Barotseland. We only have the paramount chief. And therefore, everyone in Barotseland cannot be called king. So we only refer to him as chief. So that is downgrading the powers of the king of Barotseland, who was knighted by the British Empire, by then King Sam Manawina. We have a lot of other kings that came after him. And because of that, even resources were restricted, or not even redistributed between the two states, Barotseland and Northern Rhodesia. Even though we created a country called Zambia, the kingdom of Barotseland was to remain autonomous and distinct in the new Zambia, and have its own parliament, and have its own prime minister, and have all its affairs be run alongside the central government in the Republic of Zambia. So, but all those things were watered down without even engaging the other party, which is Barotseland itself. A lot of acts were act of parliament by an act of parliament in 1969. Barotseland was actually, scrapped off the map, which is not a good thing. And efforts to really engage the central government, I think the history is there. Ambassador Kalaruka will be able to give you more details on what has transpired. It's there and it's written, and they never, they never did anything. But abrogation simply means you are not living by the terms of the agreement itself. Otherwise, it's no longer a valid document. So in technical terms, when an agreement is abrogated, we are simply saying the other part does not recognize that we are in this marriage. So whether we discuss secession or not, by technical terms, it means Barotseland already is discarded as an independent state from Zambia, because the only thing that brings Barotseland into Zambia to form Zambia is the Barotseland Agreement itself. It's like your passport. So without your passport, you cannot able to enter another country. So if we don't have the Barotseland Agreement, there's no way Barotseland can be, described to be part of Zambia. It is only through the Barotseland Agreement that Barotseland became part of Zambia. So when that document is abrogated, we are simply saying whoever comes from Barotseland is not Zambia, which is what the Baros people are fighting for, to restore the Barotseland Agreement, because that is the source of their identity in the Zambia that we have today. So without that, we are saying, you people, we don't recognize you. So then who are we? Do we revert to the original status as Barotseland? Again, we are saying, no, don't revert. That is secession. Okay, we want to be part of Zambia, therefore restore the agreement. No, we're not restoring the agreement. So now that is confusion. So what do we do now? Okay, so we need to have sober mind and approach to this whole issue. I know it's complicated because the number of resources were dedicated in when creating Zambia. We know very much the contribution of Barotseland to the creation of Zambia, the 7 billion pounds that was donated, and a number of other assets that were donated. the Barotseland National Treasure that was donated. All these things, we know what happened. So it is very difficult subject to discuss and very sensitive. But of course, no matter how complex it is and how difficult it is, we still have to talk about it because we are here to solve the problems that were created in the past. If we are not solving them, then we are not different from the people that created the problem itself. So yeah, I think, yeah, I can end there.
All right, Chaza, please come through.
Okay, unfortunately, I was again, thrown out by the network. But I'd like to find out. I don't know if this part was already tackled while I was out. I'd like to find out what is the genesis of this agreement, the Barotseland agreement. How did it come about?
To whom is the question going to?
I think I'll throw it to Ambassador, Luzongo to actually take up this one.
Okay, thank you so much, comrades. I'm struggling with network here, but you see, I'm I'm pushing. Okay.
It makes the two of us actually, struggling with network.
Hopefully, we're still having.
Yeah, it appears he has been thrown out. Maybe in the interim,
Yes,
I invite
you're back now. You're back.
Okay, it's actually
he's back.
You may come.
I was trying to ask, if I got the question very well, because I was thrown away.
Okay, so the question is, what really prompted the coming up of this agreement between Barotseland and Northern Rhodesia? What was the genesis?
Okay, you may wish to know that from since time immemorial, Barotseland and the people thereof have never wished to relinquish their power to self-government, and that has been the source of concern in all the developments over the 500 years. And when the whites came, Barotseland never wished to give anything to the whites. Their power to self-government is really the soul of the Baros nation. And even the whites respected that. So our first contact with foreign powers was through agreements. We negotiated agreements with our neighbors, and we were not willing to do anything. We were not willing to, to give it up, just because we were negotiating with the Europeans. We made it very clear that the basis upon which we will, build a relationship is through mutual respect, mutual, understanding, and mutual benefit. So we entered into the concessions. You talk about the Lochner concessions of the 1890s, 1880s, 1890s. There are so many of them. So the main essence of those agreements, simply put, was to ensure that Barotseland was not, colonized by anyone or annexed by anyone. That's why you see Barotseland has had its own history, its own government, its own parliament, its own laws, its own national anthem, its own flag. So the Barotseland Agreement, like many other agreements before it, or treaties before it, was there to consummate or to ensure that this liberty, this right of the Barosi people to govern themselves is not surrendered, whether for development or not. The other aspect, the other answer to the question as to why this Barotseland Agreement, came about, we must refer to the 2003 Constitutional Review Commission, the Mongomba Constitutional Review Commission, instituted by the President of Zambia in 2003. There is the executive summary report on page, at page 509. It's very clear. It simply gives a summary of the whole purpose of entering into this.
Comrade Christian, do we still have you? All right, we seem to be losing Comrade Christian, but however, the program still continues. In case you have just tuned in, this is the debate time on Ubuntu channel. Of course, this week's edition is so special that it's not really a debate, but going back into time, trying to understand what Barotseland is, as well as also the Barotseland Agreement of 1964. Of course, we are discussing that issue, and we would like you to understand or get to learn one or two things from this particular discussion. And if you feel that you have a question or you have an expression, you have a comment, we implore you to say, please leave that question, leave that comment in the comments box, as we will be able to read it out and also get to know what your thought is about Barotseland and the Barotseland Agreement of 1964. Comrade Christian, do we have you back now? Comrade Christian, do we have you back? All right, so our dear viewer, of course, do remember that you, okay, Comrade Christian, are you back?
Hello?
Okay, good to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to make us, understand two things. The issue of Barotseland has nothing to do with secession. Legally, we've never been one country. Let's agree on that one. It's not about secession. It's the right of Barotseland to revert to her pre-independence status. So secession does not apply. Secession applies to monolithic states, not states that came together, which were foreign to one another. I mean, they were foreign to each other. So how does secession come in? Because how do you say, how do you claim your wife is part of you when you are different individuals who have the right to get back to your families when you disagree? You see, so let's understand there is no law that can classify the issue of Barotseland as secession. It's myopic for legal minds to refer to the issue of Barotseland as secession. Number two, the issue of Barotseland it's not about sensitivity. The sensitivity attached is only existing in the Zambian political minds. There's no sensitivity about truth here. We just need to be sober and accept the reality. There's nothing sensitive about our names, and we must not sensitize this issue or make it sensitive. One just needs us to be courageous enough to accept wrongs have been done, and we do not need to go further to worsen the situation. Other people are already in pain. Lives have been killed. You cannot forbid the whole nation from discussing its own destiny, or planning its own destiny just because you think it's sensitive. You want to continue subjugating the other equal stakeholder in the marriage, right? The marriage of convenience. Then you use terms that are only suitable to you. You do not look at the suffering that your stance imposes on the other partner. So there are two issues that I'm supposed to say here. You're talking about Barotseland. It's not sensitive. It's only sensitive in the minds of the political elite in Zambia, which is not the case in Barotseland. The second one is that it's not secession. It's an international legal instrument that ensured that Barotseland as attachment to Zambia was clearly stated, and we can find that in the Mulomba Constitutional Review Commission, which I'll quote shortly. So in short, these are issues that we need to be consistent with, and I would love us to accept that we're talking about Barotseland, not Western Province. And if we advance Western Province, we'll bring in other confusions, because Western Province is the copper belt of Zambia. That's the Western Province of Zambia. So if it's Barotseland, let's talk about Barotseland. We start from there, be consistent, because once you refer to Western Province, you throw me in disarray, because you'll be talking about copper belt, and I will not be in a right state of mind to be talking about copper belt. I'm talking about Barotseland as the High Commissioner designate to Zambia as well.
Okay. This is pretty interesting. Sorry, Chaza, to jump in. I know this was you. Now, comrade, before internet threw you out, you were trying to give a background of Barotseland and how the agreement came about. Maybe in that manner, let's also try to look at what kind of a state was Barotseland before it came into agreement with Northern Rhodesia to birth this country, Zambia. What kind of a state was Barotseland and what kind of a state was Northern Rhodesia? We can't hear you, comrade. Are you still there, Ambassador? Do we have you?
It appears, the internet connectivity issue is really a problem with us tonight.
Definitely. Anyway, let's get to see if we now have him back. Comrade Christian, are you with us now?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here
Okay,
now.
did you get
Hey,
the question?
I'm fine. Okay.
Did you get the question?
Unfortunately not. Would you kindly repeat yourself, comrade?
Okay, great. So before internet, took you out, you were giving background of Barotseland and obviously how the agreement came into being. Now, let's maybe try to make us understand what kind of a state was Barotseland before that agreement with Northern Rhodesia to form Zambia, and what kind of a state was Northern Rhodesia before it approached Barotseland for that agreement to form the country called Zambia.
Thank you so much, comrade.
Just before you come in, just to add on to the same question, would like to know, because you said if you want to talk about Western Province, then you are not talking about Barotseland. So I would like to find out, even in terms of dimensions or the peripheries, which one really are we supposed to talk about if we say Barotseland? Which land are we really referring to?
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe I'll start with the additional question to the main question, the supplementary question that you've just posed, by referring to the Constitutional Review Commission Executive Summary Report at page 509. Let me just go through this one, because it will help the viewers understand the context, the legal context, because there is a political, misleading, deliberate information, put out to the public. So it's important for us to respect the mind of the legal cream of Zambia, respected by the state. These are state councils. So I wanted us to go through what they said. This is Constitutional Review Commission, report on the National Constitution Commission established on 17th April 2003, report issued in June 2003, yes. Executive summary, page 509. 1.1. That is the intent and evolution of the agreement. What was the reason as to why the agreement was entered into? Because it still informs what I gave, in the beginning. But it's important for you to understand what that agreement meant in terms of law, because it's a legal instrument. It's not something about emotions. It has nothing to do with what people think or how they feel or what their opinions are. I mean, whatever their wishes or aspirations are. It's about a legal document, concerning another state. So the commission, did submit as follows. 1.1, intent and evolution of the agreement. The Barotseland Agreement 1964 is a successor treaty to the treaties subsisting between the British Crown and the Barosse monarchy. Monarchy, not the monarch. The agreement has nothing to do with the Litunga. It has everything to do with the people of Barotseland. So the treaties were not for the Litunga, but for the people of Barotseland. Monarchy, not monarch. So the Barotseland Agreement is a successor treaty to the treaty the Barosse monarchy relating to the protection status of Barotseland prior to independence. The agreement incorporates the territory and people of the former protectorate of Barotseland into the nation of Zambia, and transfers all obligations and rights of the British Crown with respect to Barotseland to the government of Zambia, effective 24th October 1964. Before I continue, let me highlight a bit here because it answers the original question. This agreement was a successor treaty to many agreements that were between Barotseland and the British government. So what were those agreements? Were they colonial agreements? Were they protectorate agreements? Or what were they about? These agreements were simply ensuring that Barotseland's self-government is not abolished or tempered with in whichever style. So the agreement, the 1964 agreement, was simply transferring the obligations of the British Crown with regards to Barotseland. Which were those obligations? Were they colonial? No. Barotseland was not colonized. I think we are one of the few countries that were not colonized, if not the second from Ethiopia. So we were not colonized. We had no white person in the Barros government. We had no white person in the parliament. We were a sovereign state.
Are you there? Are you there, Ambassador? It appears we have lost him again.
Hello, comrades.
We can get you now.
Can get you now.
Yes, thank you so much. So I wanted to make it clear from the onset that the paragraph is talking about transferring the obligations of the British Crown to the Zambian government. Which were those? They were not colonial. That's why we had no state crown land in Barotseland, save for the land of the crown in Barotseland. We had no British crown land, unlike in Northern Rhodesia. Northern Rhodesia had crown land all over. We had our own stamps. I mean, even the stamps that we're using in our forestry. Even up to this date, it's called BNG, Barros Native Government or Barros Government. So in short, we were sovereign state, and perhaps we must understand what protectorate, which they are referring to, means in British standard of law. What were these legal minds thinking when they talked about Barotseland being a protectorate? So a protectorate, according to the British standard of law, right, is an area or a territory or a nation whose sovereignty, land, and right to self-government belong to the people themselves, the natives, but whose foreign relations are subject to the British Crown. So a protectorate in this regard is simply a country whose foreign relations are determined by the protector. So Northern Rhodesia was a colony. So this is what this legal document talks about. So let me continue. It says, the authority of the Zambian government over Barotseland is therefore derived from and legitimized by the agreement. So without the agreement, Zambia's authority over Barotseland is questionable and amounts to illegal occupation of another African nation. Because Barotseland is not a product of Zambia. Zambia never produced or created Barotseland. Barotseland was already existing even before Zambia was created. So this is an illegal occupation. So they are talking about the authority. Where does Zambia draw its authority from to administer Barotseland in the absence of the Barotseland Agreement? So this is what they're talking about. The authority of the Zambian government over Barotseland is therefore derived from and legitimized by the agreement. The agreement further provides terms and conditions on which governance in Barotseland is to be conducted by who? By both the Zambian government and the Barros government. So this agreement entails the nature of governance in the two territories that should have formed the unitary state of Zambia. Of course, the term unitary was only inserted in the constitution of Zambia by President Chiloba in 1996, for those who may wish to know, because they wanted to make it seem legitimate that Barotseland was becoming part of Zambia in 1996. Because our coming into Zambia was on express terms and conditions. And if those terms and conditions were not satisfied, we have the right to revert to the way we were before the signing of the agreement. So this is what they're talking about, these lawyers. Then they're saying the agreement, okay, the unitary nature of Zambia, of the Zambian state, the unitary nature of the Zambian state is derived from the fact that the two constituent territories, that is the Protectorate of Barotseland and Protectorate of Northern Rhodesia, signed this treaty to become one independent sovereign republic. So unitary has nothing to do with the harmony of the 73 tribes that exist in Zambia. And for your own information, the 73rd or wherever Lozi is a fictitious tribe. Lozi is not a tribe. It's a nationality and lingua franca of the people of Barotseland. It's not a tribe. Just like English is not a tribe. It's a lingua franca of the people of England. It's the nationality of the people of England. So there's nothing like that is tribal here. Everyone in Barotseland is a Murotse. So in short, this means that there is no way these two constituent territories would come together without agreeing. Right? We have many documents which were hidden to the effect that these people were consulting prior to the signing of the agreement. Delegations from both Northern Rhodesian government and Barotseland government met in Livingstone in Lusaka, and the British government was also involved. As you can see, even the bill itself that had to incorporate the Barotseland agreement, the Zambia Independence Bill, is a product of legal deliberations by both houses of the British Parliament. So it's not something that Zambia thinks, okay, it's a domestic issue, we can do as we want. That's just wishful thinking. So the other point here about
Chaza, we seem to have lost the ambassador again.
Yes, indeed. And I hope you quickly, come back.
Yeah, maybe as we wait for him to come back, perhaps we can also accommodate Akufuna on the same line of thought that ambassador is bringing out. Comrade Akufuna. Comrade Akufuna, do we have you in the studio? Well, it appears he too is having some internet challenges right there. But however, like I mentioned, the show still continues, and also
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you. I'm sure you were on mute. Please kindly. Yes, that's
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, maybe you can rephrase the question.
All right, so the question is on what Comrade Christian has been tackling, the issue of what kind of a state was Barotseland before it entered into an agreement with Northern Rhodesia, and also Northern Rhodesia, what kind of a state was it?
So Barotseland had what we call the Katengo. So Katengo is basically parliament of Barotseland, which is headed by the prime minister, who is the Ngambela of Barotseland. So the governance structure in Barotseland has both the judiciary aspect and also has the legislative aspect, which is the Katengo or the parliament. And also we had, the royal aspect, which is where we have the king of Barotseland, who is the Litunga, which means land. And the idea is in Barotseland, the king does not involve himself in the day-to-day running of the kingdom, and thereby the prime minister is fully in charge in the day-to-day run of the kingdom. And we are explicitly organized in what we call, now we are calling them districts and so on and so forth, which are headed by the senior chiefs. So, for example, we have the senior chief of Mwandi and the Sasheke area. We have all the various areas, Nalolo, Rwanda, and we have also what we call, the Indunas. We have also what we call Induna Wasilalo. Induna Wasilalo means, like in the modern context, we call it a constituency or an area which we have many other villages that are governed in that context. So we have a representative of each and every village in Barotseland in the governance system. And all key decisions in Barotseland are not made and cannot be made by one man. So they are made through what we call the BNC, which is the Barotseland National Council. And of course, this usually is inspired or constituted by what we call the Barotseland Privy Council. Privy Council is where all the chiefs in Barotseland meet and discuss key issues that affect the kingdom of Barotseland. And of course, the Ngambilas also should be very present in that kind of conversation. So decision making actually is bottom up in the context of Barotseland, which is why it is very difficult to talk about the issue of Barotseland without involving the people of Barotseland themselves. So it was a fully well established, governance system in Barotseland. We have our own national anthem, Bulozi Fasila Wanda Taluna, and we have 3 verses in that. We have the coat of arms, we had our own currency called Mupu, and we have, the national flag. In it, usually on the Narikwanda border in Komboka, you see it, and also the palace is also put up there alongside the Zambian government, the Zambian flag. And all these things are in place. We had the Barotseland National Treasury, where we had all the monies that were most of it coming from the taxes that were paid from the mines in the copper belt to the king himself, the Itunga, and we have also other monies that were generated locally. So Barotseland was explicitly organized in terms of the governance structure, so it was fully recognized as a state of its own kind and very unique in its own nature. And like the ambassador mentioned, that Barotseland was never colonized except during the 30-year period of the colonial people when they came from South Africa. But beyond that, it was not colonized by any white colonizers that came to Africa. Instead, we established. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. You may go on. You may go on.
Oh, okay, yeah. So instead, we established friendships and relationships that led to Barotseland attaining its protectorate state through the British government. And this was necessitated by I think you heard about the Ndebele Wars. So the Ndebele people were very furious, and in that context, they scared out a lot of other, tribes, kingdoms within the region. And I think you're aware about the Bechuanaland was actually much ahead of Barotseland in terms of attaining the protectorate state. So Bechuanaland is the one who was friends with Barotseland, who advised the king of Barotseland to say, yes, you are scared of the attacks, but please get in touch with the British. They can be of help in the context of finding protection beyond what you can provide for yourself. So that's how we started conversation about attaining the protectorate state of Barotseland itself. But I think what really led us to, I think there was a question that Comrade Chaza asked before we both dropped out from the call. That was the question of why the Barotseland agreement, or maybe I can ask that question by saying, what if there was no Barotseland agreement? So if there was no Barotseland agreement, first of all, in the time of attaining independence, there are so many conditions that were attached to African colonies. For you to attain independence, they had the whole long list of items that you have to really check before you actually are qualified to attain your own independence. One of it was the economic status. Do you have enough resources to govern yourselves? And also, are you politically mature to govern yourselves? Do you have the buy-in from the people themselves? because some people could take advantage and try to push their own personal agenda. So the queen was very particular about who is asking to get their independence, and they had all the checklists. So for Kaunda, in terms of Northern Rhodesia, it was a very difficult one in the context of economic resources. So the resources were very scarce, and the queen said you cannot get independence with no resources, otherwise you are going to make people suffer. They are better off under our colonization than when they are independent and they have no resources at all. So Kaunda wanted to find ways of raising resources for Northern Rhodesia to really qualify and get their independence, but he had no other options but to take advantage of his friendship with the author winners, Scotter winners, who are very close friends of his. They are together at school at some point, and they are very good friends. So author winner is the son of the late king, Sam Mwanawina, who was the one at the time of the Barotseland enactment in charge of Barotseland itself. So he used his friendship to come up with some kind of strategy, I would call it, where he could bring Barotseland to his side so that we can convince the Queen in England that, look, Queen, we have the capacity to govern ourselves, we have the resources. And by that time, Barotseland was happy in terms of resources. We had all the resources at our disposal. So the Queen gave a condition to say, you have to negotiate your way through Barotseland, and that is how you can get the independence for yourselves as well as Northern Rhodesia. So what is that negotiation? So negotiation was the British was aware that Barotseland was a British protectorate, and they had all conditions lined up in the agreements between Barotseland and the British government, that they knew that when Barotseland is to go to independence, it means all those responsibilities will be enshrined in the newly created country, which will be called Zambia. So the idea was, is Barotseland safe? So the idea was to make sure that whatever happens at the end of the day, the autonomous status of Barotseland should be maintained. The governance systems in Barotseland should be maintained, and the kingship and the rulership, and also I can call it the self, determination, state should be maintained in the context of Barotseland, even in the new Zambia. So that the thing was, we there was no intention to delete Barotseland from the map, even in the newly created country called Zambia, because the heritage attached to the history of the kingdom, which is over 500 years, was to be maintained against all odds. So that's what happened now, and the issue was, how do we convince Barotseland? That was the most difficult question, and the only people who were convinced at that time was Arthur Weiner, and of course through the influence of his friend KK. But the kingdom itself was against the idea of merging with Northern Rhodesia to go to independence as one country called Zambia. I think the history around there was, we are aware the king actually even cased that document because he was not happy, but he was forced. There was some, what we call Ndwayamanaka in Lozi, the War of Horns in English, where Arthur Weiner and his friends went to attack his father, the king, to force him to allow the Barotseland agreement to go through, so that we can create the country called Zambia. So that's how everything was. There's a long story there, but they had to agree and convince the queen that, yeah, now we have resources. We could show resources because the Barotseland National Treasury had some monies in there, and the queen was convinced that, yes, you can run a country of your own, but we need to have some, protection of some kind, which was now why Barotseland agreement had to be signed, to ensure that should anything change in the future, we have some evidence to look back at. And if you look at the way Barotseland agreement was signed, it was very carefully, signed, which answers the question why people say, but KK has died a long time ago. The Sam Mwanawina has died a long time ago, and even now the Queen just recently passed on. So the Barotseland agreement also has died. But if you look at the way it was signed, both KK did not sign on his own personal behalf. He signed on behalf of Northern Rhodesia and all the people in Northern Rhodesia. Sam Mwanawina also signed through his Ngambela on behalf of himself, on behalf of all the chiefs in Barotseland, on behalf of all the people of Barotseland, born and unborn, which means that each and every Murozi or Barozish has the right to even stand up and use that document to claim his right and his heritage and in terms of the Barotseland kingdom itself. So it means that document will remain valid forevermore because that signature represents everyone who comes from that area called Barotseland. So I think that's the brief background to that. However, the intention was never to have any problems with Northern Rhodesia. It was actually a joyous moment that the agreement was signed and Zambia was created. It only became bad when the other party decided to disappoint the other faithful partner in the relationship itself. Thank you.
All right, maybe we can get back to Ambassador, Luzongo. His thought was, cut short as he was giving us, a quotation from, the Constitution there, from the review of the Constitution's report. Maybe Ambassador would give you that chance to actually complete your thought. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, comrades, and really apologize for the network breakups here. So here is the continuation of the quote. It says the unitary nature of the Zambian state is derived from the fact that the two constituent territories, i.e. the Protectorate of Barotseland and the Protectorate of Northern Rhodesia, signed this treaty to become one independent sovereign republic. But here is the problem even in that, because there is a kingdom and a republic, and it's like mixing water with oil. And this was, it's more like trying, in Britain, it worked because there were kingdoms. When you look at the Acts of Union, King James IV, who became King James I after the death of Queen Elizabeth I. He was King James IV of Scotland. He became King James I of England while maintaining the title of James IV of Scotland. This is the personal union of the crowns, which brought in the Union Acts. Scotland, Union Act of 1706. And England was doing the same. So both parliaments had to agree because there were kingdoms in the first place and they were, governed by one king. But here we're talking about a republic. And this was simply an agreement of disagreements. So here is where the problem is: an independent sovereign republic, a kingdom and a republic merging into one. Impossible. It's unheard of. This principle is enshrined in paragraph 2 and 3 of the preamble of the agreement. This principle was further reflected in the legal instrument that gave birth to the new republic. That is Article 125(1) of Northern Rhodesia Independence Order 1964, which promulgated the Independence Constitution, and Section 1 of the Zambia Independence Act of 1964. Both these legal provisions arose as a direct consequence of the agreement of 1964. The conclusion: Barotseland is part of Zambia and remains so as a consequence of the Barotseland Agreement 1964. Now the question is, Barotseland was already part of Zambia. So what were they negotiating? How would you sign an agreement with your head, between your head and your leg? Something that is already part of you. How do you sign an agreement with yourself? It beats common logic. I mean, it's as clear as daylight. We'd not need to guess. These were never one. They've never been one. So that's why even the issue of transferring the protector's obligations were inherited by the Zambian government. So in short, Zambia became a quasi-protector, not a colonizer, as it later became. So the conclusion here says failure to implement the agreement amounts to frustration of the treaty, which gives rise to questions about the legitimacy of Zambian government authority over Barotseland and jeopardizes the continued existence of the unitary state. These are legal minds, mind you. So in short, the agreement is the only the only basis of our connection with Zambia. Without the agreement, we are not Zambians. We are Barotseland nation.
Well, pretty interesting there, if we would say, Chaza, and quite informative information coming through from Ambassador Christian right there. Our dear viewers, of course, you are watching Debate Time on Ubuntu channel. This is a special edition where we are not debating, but rather bringing you the history and information about Barotseland. So what do you know about Barotseland and the Barotseland Agreement of 1964 is what we are discussing this evening. So shortly, we'll be reading through the messages that you are sending through on this broadcast, wherever that you are watching us from, either on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitter. We do really appreciate that actually you are watching us and also making comments through there. We'll be reading those messages shortly. But Chaza, allow me to, do a follow-up question on something which was raised when we started the program, and I didn't have the chance to raise it. Comrade Akufuna, when we started the program, Comrade Ambassador Christian made mention to an issue of Copper Belt being part of being the western province of Zambia. I think he mentioned something like that. And then he said when Barotseland and Northern, I think it's you who said when Northern Rhodesia and Barotseland were signing that document or that Barotseland agreement, Barotseland was not Western Province. What what is the jurisdiction, or maybe let's say there's a word I'm trying to put across. What is the barricade of this Barotseland? Because obviously there should be an insignia to say Barotseland starts from this end and it's the other end, or it goes throughout like this. What is the boundary? Yes, what is the boundary of Barotseland? Does it have boundaries?
I can see we have Akufuna here. If he's around, he can take it up, because Luzongo appears to have, been expelled.
With internet.
Exactly.
Comrade Akufuna, do we have you? Let's take a look at boundaries. What is the boundary? I think, Chaza, you will agree with me that in this discourse of Barotseland, many people have raised issues to say, what is the boundary then of this Barotseland? Others have even brought in an issue of Barotseland goes as far as Namibia, and if they are saying they want Barotseland back as a state, are they also going to fight Namibia? It goes like there are all these myths or all these suggestions that keep on coming through from people. So perhaps we get it from
Can you hear me?
Comrade Akufuna. Yes, now we can hear you. What is the boundary of Barotseland?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, indeed, we can hear it.
Comrade Akufuna, we can hear you. Or perhaps we can have you. We can have you, Comrade Christian. What is the boundary of Barotseland? Or does Barotseland have boundaries? Comrade Akufuna, are you here? Comrade Akufuna?
Luzongo.
Right, Comrade. Well,
appears that the network is really not on our side, tonight. And when the topic is even getting even more interesting, unfortunately,
Well, as we are waiting for our guest, Chaza, let's get to have a look at messages that have come through. Let's get to at least appreciate our viewers that are watching this particular program. Let's get to appreciate them and also, get to thank them for their viewership.
Mhm.
You can go ahead. I think today we are starting with you, Chaza.
All right,
Am I audible?
all right. Thank you so much.
Now we are
Lance, we have this one coming from Sylvester Yunes. We're saying watching from Namibia. Now that we have Luzongo, I think because of internet, it must take priority. Let's utilize it before he's cut out.
Thank you so much. I think this drama will come to an end shortly. Okay, those that are talking about Angola, DRC, Namibia, Botswana, and the whole lot of the countries that are referring to, I mean, simply portraying some kind of deficiency in common sense and logic. Because how could Northern Rhodesia sign an agreement with a country that claims other territories? Because Northern Rhodesia is supposed to go to those countries, talk to them on the, on the extent of the agreement they are entering into. So basic logic and common sense should be displayed by the people that are referring to, these other excuses as to why this country of Barotseland should not have the right to self. Determination. The agreement is clear. There were three parties to that agreement, vis-a-vis the Northern Rhodesia government, or Northern Rhodesia, the government of Barotseland, or Barotseland in short, and the government of Britain. And all these three wouldn't be so illogical as to fail to know the extent of the Barotseland territory. So we have the map of from 1900s to 1947, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Western Province, we're not talking about Barotseland Empire, we're talking about Barotseland proper, with places like Livingstone. For your own information, Livingstone was part and parcel of Barotseland. That's where, if you go to Central Prison, Livingstone Central Prison, you find the monument there of our soldiers. That was the headquarters of the Baros Native Police. The first police in Barotseland was in Livingstone. That was our headquarters. And even the helmets had the caps had BNG, Barossa Native Police there, as part of their uniform. So it has Livingstone, it has Zimba, it has Kazungula, it has Kalomo. Of course, in 1911, when Northeastern Rhodesia was amalgamated with Western Rhodesia to form Northern Rhodesia, the chiefs in Kalomo wrote a letter to the government of Britain, or the governor in short, that they were not willing to be part and parcel of the new colony of Northern Rhodesia, which was simply, a protectorate in the usage of the term, but in practice it was a full-time colony, right? So they wrote to the British administration to say, we still want to continue being under the protection of our father, the Litunga. So we're talking of these districts that are not in the package called Western Province. You see, so Kalomo is part and parcel of Barotseland, Mumba is part and parcel of Barotseland, Utej is part and parcel of Barotseland, Kasempa somewhere there, part and parcel of Barotseland. Of course, we're not talking about the Balovale district, which was, enjoined to Northern Rhodesia in 1936. I think there's a commission that was established. I've forgotten whether it's Moncton Commission. So in short, we're talking of the very western boundary as it is, because it is the arbitral award of King Victor Emmanuel of Italy. There was a dispute between the Portuguese as well as Barotseland and Britain quickly, because it was a protector. Remember, the role of the protector in our context was to ensure that foreign relations do not lead us into problems. So Britain took that very issue, and then there was the Anglo-Portuguese, arbitral award given to King Emmanuel, of Spain. You see, so it was of Italy, I beg your pardon. So it was that arbitral award that gave that straight line. Maybe some people ask why Zambia has that straight line on the western boundary, which is claimed to be Zambian, but it's Barotseland, with Angola. That is the principle of average the King of Italy used to come up with a solution to the boundary case. So we can find the Baros boundary case, even on Google. You just go there, say Barotseland boundary case of 1900, and you find these documents. They are even in the United Nations archives. So in short, in brief, we're talking about the current so-called Western province with these districts that I've said. And I can go on, referring to the Constitution of Barotseland, which talks about the territorial frontiers of Barotseland. But since time is not with us, I would love to emphasize that the current, so-called Western province, with the districts that I've mentioned, are what constitute Barotseland. It doesn't matter who occupies those districts right now. It doesn't matter if they don't want to be part of Barotseland. They can move out because the territory cannot be altered because of the people who just came. It has real owners. We are living in a global village where the right to mobility or citizenship cannot be denied. Even the Barotse citizenship cannot be denied. Those who want to be Barotse citizens are free to do so. So in short, that is the brief answer to your very big question.
All right. Thank you so much. We do appreciate. We have been joined by Percy right here in the studio. Percy, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening and good evening to our guests. For me,
go right ahead and ask your question or contribution.
It's basically to be a question and a contribution. To me, some of the things the guests have said, I agree. Some of it, I don't agree. Let me just get on one thing. The last time our guest said the real owners. I want him to underline the word the real owners. My understanding of tribe movements in Zambia, the only real Zambians in Zambia are the Solis and some other tribes. Most of our tribes came outside Zambia. That includes the Ngonis, Lozis. I can make a paragraph. So my point is, for me, it wasn't right to make that agreement, to even sign that agreement, for one reason. The main reason is, if the Barotse agreement can stand as they are advocating here, then it means that the people who were there before the Lozis came to Zambia, there was another tribe there which gave them sanctuary when they arrived. So how does you, as the landlord, you let the tenant to go and make an agreement? For me, that doesn't work. So for me, that agreement, in my books, it doesn't have a lot of legs to stand on. If it was the Solis who are indigenous to Zambia, I would say, okay, yeah, that's in Chalonchao. Unless our guests can tell me that the Lozis have been in Zambia all along and other tribes found them. Yes, they had the right to sign that agreement. But you can't sign an agreement when you are the tenant, just because you want protection. No. For me, that agreement doesn't have a lot of legs to stand on. Yes, it's a kingdom. I can't dispute that. When they came, they were given land and they created their kingdom. But that land wasn't theirs to sign for. It was the land given to them to live on. Actually, I'll leave it there, because if I start talking, I won't stop. The only thing I'll leave you with is, remember your grade 9 history, how tribes moved from South Africa and other parts of Africa to come to Zambia. Check that out.
Thank you.
And then you can tell me about the agreement.
Thank you so much, Percy, for coming through. And of course, to accommodate two more people or two more comments, we have shared the link with you kindly click on the link, switch on your camera as well as your mic. Join us into the studio. Only 2 people will be allowed to come in, as time is not really our best ally. We're supposed to be winding down or winding up. I don't know, Comrade Akufuna or Comrade Christian, any of you can pick up Percy's concern and question.
Yeah, I think I'll start, and then Comrade Kalaluka can maybe add 1 or 2 points. So like I mentioned in my open remarks, this issue is not the issue you can discuss with emotions, feelings, and the Barotseland agreement issue it's not a tribe issue. If you want to discuss tribe, then whatever person said is correct, because that is a tribal discussion. It's not a national, international treaty, legal discussion. So, but what we are discussing here is beyond tribe, and the Lozi is not a tribe. Lozi is the lingua franca, is the national, and the Germans could pronounce Lozi. That's why it's called Barotseland, the land of the roses. So in Barotseland, there are over 38 tribes. So I think the perception my comrade Percy was trying to bring across are not representative of the actual situation in Barotseland, because Barotseland is a nation with over 38 tribes, and all those are amalgamated into a nation called Barotseland. So whether or not this tribe or the other tribe was more superior than the other, that is not our concern. We have lived in harmony in the nation of Barotseland for over 500 years as we are speaking now, and we have not had any issue to do with tribes. So I've also seen the fact that that understanding has been used to disinform people. We have seen many efforts where people are trying to, for example, influence Nkoyas so that they can rise against the Lozis. But Nkoyas are fully part and parcel of the kingdom of Barotseland. You can argue it from all other angles, but at the end of the day, they belong to the nation called Barotseland. So it's not a tribal issue. And King Mulamba, the 10th Litunga of Barotseland, is on the record of having been the first Litunga to end slave trade in Barotseland, and he preached peace, and he amalgamated as many tribes as possible into the kingdom, and that's how Barotseland was founded. And it's evident even in the national anthem of Barotseland, where we say we are no longer interested in wars, but to creating peace and strengthening our relationships. So if you come for Komboka next year, you realize that all these other tribes have a role to play in the traditional ceremony in Barotseland. The Nkoya's drums are sounded in the Narikwanda. All other tribes have different songs, different contribution, even in the design of the Narikwanda itself. So it's one nation. So I just want to make clear that it is not a tribe issue, and the issues of territorial, who owns which part and so on and so forth is not discussed from tribe perspective, but the national perspective. So those boundaries for Barotseland are on record, and you can find those records even in the UN system for your own information. And yeah, it's a legal discussion, and I would advise everyone not to engage in this discussion from emotions perspective. And the last point before I conclude is we must never reach a point where we downplay the value that the Barotseland Agreement brought to the creation of this country called Zambia. So watering it down like it's just some other document, it does not really mean well for the country called Zambia, the one we are proud of to be called a Zambian today, because without the Barotseland Agreement, I don't think we would have what we call Zambia today. It is also something that we need to recognize and appreciate. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that contribution. Let's quickly get to welcome Daniel into the studio. Daniel, good evening and welcome to the program. Daniel, good evening.
His mic appears to be on mute, or is the network problem?
All right, our dear viewers, remember that when you come through, allow your mic and camera to be on so that we can have a proper deliberation or a proper engagement as you come through into the studio. All right, Comrade Christian, Obviously, you also have one or two to say or to add on to Percy's concern as well as question.
Thank you so much, comrades. And I've been laughing here because it was a very wonderful contribution. And really, like Comrade Muyunda said, we do not need to attach emotions here. This is a legal issue. It doesn't matter whether someone has eaten impua or, nyamasoya. It's about the legalities of the issues we are talking about here. So one thing that he's talking about is he's referring to grade 9 history. Everything about Barotseland was banned by Kaunda deliberately, so that we have situations like his. You see, even the current system is misinformed, so they cannot say the truth about Barotseland, because the truth to them, the reality is what they know. And in the history, the grade 9 history that he's talking about, he would get surprised if he goes to Uganda, Botswana, South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, and all these other countries. They're talking about Barotseland. They know what Barotseland is. But right there where Barotseland is, it's been illegalized. It's been banned. So he can't teach, in short, what he doesn't know. He cannot explain what he doesn't understand, and he cannot lead where he won't go. So we're talking about tangible stuff here. He's talking about losses having come. From where? Because the people that came to Barotseland are people who came from Lesotho. Basotho, Bafokeng, Bahapas, led by Murena Sibitwane, King Sibitwane, right? They came and found a kingdom, a Luyana kingdom, a Lui kingdom, with the many tribes that were there in 1840. The Mudas came in 1795. The first cluster of Mudas came in 1795, right? And when they came, right, they were given space where to be, and that chieftaincy was upheld. So, there is nothing like, oh no, Barotse people came from South Africa. The Bafokeng who came and ruled Barotseland that time are the ones who changed the name of the country and even imposed Sesotho. For your own information, Barotse has 75% of Sesotho, and it has 15% of Setswana. So these things are not taught because of Barosphobia. And he's right in his own reality, and we cannot we only feel sorry for him. So in short, Lozi is a corrupt of Rotse. Let me give you a brief history of that name, of that chain. When Murena Sibitwane, King Sibitwane, came to Barotseland in the 1840s, right? He found a succession dispute between the two brothers who were the children of King Mulambwa, the 12th Litunga of Barotseland. He had just died, and the Northern Kingdom wanted the younger brother, the Southern Kingdom wanted this, the older brother. So the kingdom was divided, right? That's how the Kololos, who are a mixture of Bafokengi, Batrokwa, and a bit of, Matebele, found the divided kingdom, and that's how Sibitwane conquered and overpowered Barotseland and ruled. And he imposed, because in Barotseland there was no proper national language, because the Luyana dialects, the Kwangwas and all this other stuff. If you talk about Luyana, you're talking about many, many tribes under that umbrella, right? Then they were able to talk to one another. 3/4 of the tribes in Barotseland are able to talk to one another without an interpreter. So when they came, they looked at the spacious land of Barotseland, which was full of plains, and there was a lot of water. So in Sesotho, they said, this country or this land is a land of plains, right? And Vatuvana Kiva to Barotse, meaning these people are people of the plains. Now, when he used to talk with his Indunas, right, would say, have you talked to these people of the plain? Have you talked to these people, Barotse? And that's how people became Barotse. Then he banned the speaking of these indigenous languages, right, and imposed Sesotho. Now, for your own information, we failed to speak Sesotho accordingly. Mutlompe, which is HL in Sesotho, Mutlo, we don't have HL, we use T, Mutompe. Litlo Nolo, we say Litoho Nolo. Murena, we say Mulena, because we don't have Ara. You know that Barotse have a problem with Ara. And TH, to some extent, we put Z. TS, we put Z as well. So, Burotse, we said Bulozi. Murena, we said Mulena. You get that? So, they said, Poena. Sisutu Kisirotse, meaning this language is not Sisutu, it's a language of the plain. And that's how, but these people are Barotse, people of the plain. That's how when David Livingstone came, he found the corrupted, language, Sisutu language. Sibitwane said, these people are Barotse, people of the plain. All of the tribes that were found by Sibitwane are collectively referred as to Barotse. And the country, when the missionaries came, said Burotse or Barotseland. So when he's talking about Lozi, not being the owners, the Solis, he's talking about Zambia. Of course, he's talking about Solis in Zambia. We're not talking about Zambia. We're talking about Barotseland, which is our inheritance and our right. The second one is that, if I may,
yes,
the second one is talking about, they cannot, the agreement was not right and all that. Okay, Tanzania has the right over Zambia because the Bembas come from the Luba Empire, right? Tanzania can get, northern province as well as Luapula because Bembas are not originals there, right? Is that what he says? Of course not. So, occupation of any territories, of any territory in the past was through two means, either by conquest, right, or simply by agreements or by suppressing those other smaller tribes. Which nation? Even England, there were wars to, with Vikings, if you understand that. There were wars with Vikings to establish those things that are existing. So we have a stretch of history that is you're supposed to understand. The other point, which is talking about Barotseland agreement, was not right because it's causing whatever he thinks it causes. You see, this is a marriage, it's a relationship. I don't think that he can he can simply get someone's daughter and then marry and then have his own way as he thinks. These are basic issues. If we look at it from this very angle, there is no Zambia without the agreement. What remains is Northern Rhodesia. And we're not talking about the agreement now being restored. We're talking about Zambia understanding that it has no right over Barotseland. And the other aspect is that even in marriage, let me just give you this brief example. The truth, is that the issue of Barotseland and Zambia is a marriage, and stepchildren or children of the husband, people from other so-called provinces, right, should keep quiet. This issue is about Barotse and the government of Zambia, not the people of Zambia, but the government of Zambia. The people of Zambia are innocent. They do not know anything. They've been misled by the political elite. Barotseland is married to a wayward spouse, inter alia Zambia, who has torn the marriage certificate, continues to treat Barotseland contrary to the agreed terms and conditions of the marriage, lowering Barotseland to the level of her own children, right, the provinces, yet expecting Barotseland to simply accept and submit to a frivolous arrangement. No, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot get a woman, marry her, and then you treat her the same as, your children from the other marriage. It's only, it's illogical. So when the wife complains to say, my husband, you're not treating me fairly. You're treating me like one of your kids. I'm your wife. I'm your spouse. Don't downgrade me to the level of your kids, your children. I'm above that. My coming here was through terms and conditions. We loved one another, and we're supposed to respect one another. In the absence of respect in the marriage, I have the right to get back. You say, no, the moment the problem you made is coming to this house as my wife, you're not going anywhere. I'll treat you the way I want. And it's treasonable for you to talk about how you're suffering, suffering at my hands. I mean, this is the situation in short term.
Comrade Christian, as you know, time is not really our best ally. Like I have many questions. I would like you to talk about the BNC 2012. I would like you to talk about the famous referendum, because there's an issue of a referendum was signed somewhere, somehow, between Zambia and Barotseland, or in Barotseland, to agree to whatever that happens there. But now, time is not our best ally. Can we make an agreement live so that, at least we say Comrade Christian and Akufuna agreed live on a program that will again have another edition of this topic in continuation of the topic, so that so many issues attended to and looked into as far as this issue of Barotseland is concerned.
Yes, please. As Barotseland's High Commissioner designate to Zambia, it's my responsibility to ensure that I explain to the Zambians what our state Barotseland and the Barotseland government's programs are and where the things are, and it's my duty. And I'll be obliged to be.
So thank you so much. In ending the program, Director, can we please allow Sitali to come through and make a comment, or to make his concern known? Comrade Sitali, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening.
You are very low, comrade. I don't know if it's only me, but I can barely hear you.
Is it much better now?
Now you are much better.
Yes. Good evening, comrades. My comment is very short, very brief. I know that there was a reference to it by His Excellency, Ambassador Christian. But I think when you look at the Union of Tanzania, it is Tanganyika and Zanzibar that came together to form what is now known as the Union of Tanzania. So it is two that came together. Now, the two countries that came together, there is a central government that is in Tanzania. The central government of Tanzania that is domiciled in Tanganyika, and then there is a government, something similar to a local government that is domiciled in Zanzibar. But Zanzibar still does subscribe to the Union of Tanzania because the agreement is still valid, the agreement is still running, the agreement is still on. Okay? So that was the arrangement that Zambia and that Northern Rhodesia and Barotseland had in 1964. When Sam Wanawina was signing the agreement on behalf of Barotseland, the idea was that because Barotseland was a protectorate of the British at the time, and the British were pulling out of Northern Rhodesia, it was only just and fair on the side of the British to pen down Barotseland as a protectorate under the hands of Northern Rhodesia and Zambia. And when they did that, the Union of Zambia was formed with the joining of Northern Rhodesia and the Kingdom of Barotseland. And then they became one. Now, when President Kaunda at the time held a referendum for the rest of the country, including territories that were not part of Barotseland, to vote on the amendment of the constitution at the time to remove the Barotse agreement. That was an abrogation of the agreement. And the moment the agreement was abrogated, the Union of Zambia ceased to exist. What became then was Northern Rhodesia, which then called itself Zambia, and Barotseland, which still continues to call itself Barotseland. So the issue of the existence of Barotseland, of Zambia as a unitary state together with Barotseland, died in the 60s, in 1968, and confirmed in 1972 when the agreement was abrogated, because violating, and this is the reason why I think the Barotseland government does not even want to negotiate now, because it is different, comrades, to violate a clause of the agreement and to remove the agreement in its entirety. And I stand corrected. I don't think it would have been a problem for the people of Barotseland if there was just one clause of the agreement that was violated. We could have gone to a point where we say, let us renegotiate, let us see how we rectify or we remedy this clause that was violated in the agreement. But instead of violating one clause, what the government of Zambia formerly known as Northern Rhodesia, did is that they violated and removed the entire agreement from the constitution, thereby signaling that there was nothing of this nature that existed. The Union of Zambia ceased to exist at that time. The Barotse National Council of 2012 only confirmed what was suspected or what was thought or what was engineered in 1968 when Kaunda removed the Barotse Agreement as part of the constitution, as part of what was defining a unitary state of Zambia. So Zambia as a unitary state stopped existing a very long time ago, but of course, being a kingdom or a nation that practices a democracy, it was not upon the forefront leaders of Barotseland to just make a decision and say that this constitution that Zambia has now enacted abrogated the agreement, and therefore we are automatically a free citizen. The leaders of Barotseland couldn't just do that. And that is why the Barotse National Council of 2012 was established, because we have been practicing democracy for a very long time. And as a democratic state, Barotseland then gathered with representatives from different regions of Barotseland that then agreed to say that let us now confirm what Zambia had started, and that is to say that Barotseland is an independent state. It was at that point, comrades, that that is just the perspective I wanted to fuse in.
Thank you so much, Comrade Nawa. We really appreciate it. Chaza, in closing, I leave it up to you.
Thank you so much, Lance. It's really a hot topic that, is difficult to close, because I feel we have not even gone a quarter way over what we needed, to look at right here. And just like you earlier indicated, I think, we'll do a continuation, of this same topic, maybe in one or two other programs, to come. So for now, I think we'll take our time to thank our guests that, have been right here on the program. That's Akufuna, and not forgetting, our comrades. I don't want to make a mistake as regards, the name, Comrade Luzongo there. We do appreciate so much, and we indeed need you right here, in the subsequent program, so that we get to clarify things right here. And I'm not forgetting the people that came through and participated, the likes of, Pesty there, not forgetting Nawa. And I can see that Christabel, has been attempting to come through, but has failed. And we sincerely apologize for not, reading all the messages that, our viewers out there have sent in. This is due to time. At this point in time, would like to thank you so much. Do join us even next week right here, same time. From myself, Lance, my name is Chaza. Thank you so much to even IT, Emmanuel, and CJ. Till then, we are saying God bless you all. We are out of here.